Well, what's up, everybody? Chris Johnson here with another episode of the Man Maker podcast. This is episode 2, and I'm so excited to have my guest tonight. He is a brother that I have come to know, and he has been one of our speakers at our Man Maker Academy. He is an author of a book called Walk Like a King, and it is a young man's guide to conquering the world. And I'm glad to have him on our podcast tonight. Everybody help me welcome to our podcast, Mr. Jesse Cole. Jesse, thank you so much, brother.
Yes, sir. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Man, it is always a pleasure. When we get together, man, there's just something electric that happens. I believe this is a kingdom connect. I love the work that you're doing just all around, but I was really intrigued by your work that you've done with young men, the book that you've written for young men. The book is a guidebook. So first, let's start there. Let's talk about as a man who you are, a husband, a father, and then we'll kind of ease right into what inspired the book.
Yeah. So you pretty much hit on the head. And as a man, I'm a husband, I'm a father. Everything else is just a benefit, man. As long as my family is good, everything else on the outside, far be it from me to be out in the world doing good work and my house ain't right. Right.
Oh
And
man.
so I would say being a husband and a father has been the most exciting, but also the most growth gratifying thing I've ever done in my life. Just learning how to do both.
I love it. I love it. You said that's been everything else is just kind of an accessory. Where
Yeah.
did you get that conviction of you need to be a man first? That's one of our things we talk about. Be a man first, and everything that means. Where did that come from in your life?
That came from my father, being a strong force in our family. Um, he took up space in the house, right? And so just learning, what that looked like, and he was present and came to all my basketball games, all my football games, my brothers and my sisters as well, and working 9 to 10 hours a day and still coming to the games, and then had to preach on Sunday, right? And
Mm.
so he had to study for his sermon. So just the way that he
One,
did all that with
one time for
grace.
the PKs.
Yeah. The way he did that with grace, I really didn't appreciate it until I became an adult and had my own children. I'm like, man, my parents have 4 kids by the time they were 30, and I only have two, and I'm about to be, so it's like, okay, I appreciate his presence. I appreciate all the work that he put in as a father, and he didn't even have a father. So,
Mm.
like one of the things he said is when he had kids, he's going to do it different. His the father that he did know was in prison, right? And
Wow.
so that wasn't even his real father. He found his real father later on in life. So all these different things were happening. So he didn't really have a strong male figure in his life. And so the fact that he was able to demonstrate what that looked like for me and my brothers and my sister is truly amazing.
Your earliest, I think people underestimate how blessed they are. And a lot of fellas underestimate who have their dads in their lives, who had, I mean, a father in the house. Like you said, he took up space in the house. To have a father in your life, I believe that a man gets his earliest conviction about manhood from the man nearest to him. And this
Yeah.
can't this may not be good in some cases. Uh, you know, um, tell me, do you believe? And this is somewhat of a tricky question, but do you believe you'd be the man you are today had you not had your father in the house?
Absolutely not. The good and the bad, right?
Mm,
So as you said, there were some great things that he was able to do, and we talk about this stuff. So this is not a surprise, right? I'm
yeah,
I'm at an age where I can talk to my father about the hard stuff, right, and feel good and have the authority to do it, right?
yeah.
And so uh, there were a lot of great things. He taught us diligence, how to work hard, how to be present, how to have compassion, what true ministry looked like, how to love your wife, all these different things.
Yeah.
But there were also some other things as well that that we learned by watching or learned by hearing that we took on, right? And so, but the good and the not so good, I needed them both to become who I am today.
You needed both
Yeah,
of those to give to
yeah,
gain perspective. I call it to find balance.
yeah,
you know, I don't really know the good stuff until I measure it by the bad stuff. And I think that's so critical. You have this earlier sign of a man. You come into adulthood. You're starting to raise your own family. You get married, and then you have this deep felt conviction. I'm assuming about fatherlessness. Was it something that said, okay, I had this? And did you, because for me it was like, okay, I thought about all the guys that didn't have it. And
yeah,
I'm like, man, I was blessed. My dad passed away in 2012, but I was 32. So I had 32 years of my life with my dad. And I thought about all the guys who never had it.
yeah.
What was your inspiration behind saying, okay, I need to write a guidebook for young men who don't maybe not have that father in their life?
Yeah. So at the time, this is around 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. I had a success coach. First time I had ever hired a coach. And
Mm,
through our success coaching, he discovered that I had a passion for speaking, for writing, creating concepts. And he knew that I worked in the school system. And he challenged me. He said, I want you to write a book for these young men that you see every single day.
mm,
I'm going to give you 30 days to write this book. So he gave me 30 days to write a book. Now, granted, I wasn't just working; I was flying places and speaking. So whenever I was on the plane, I'm writing on napkins. Whenever I'm going out
mm.
to eat, I'm writing on tablets. Right, all these different things that came together, and so I'm working with these young men at this charter school, and a lot of the young men that were there, the African American young men, they didn't have strong father figures in their homes. They didn't have strong father or male figures in their life. A lot of the young men that I was working with in this middle school, they had these behavioral contracts. They were about this close to being kicked out of school or being transferred to another school. And so I'm working with these young men every single day. I'm hearing their pain, I'm hearing their excitement. At the same time, I'm writing a book.
Mm.
And so I wrote this book, and I went to the principal. I said, and principal was a black female at the time, and I was like, listen, I wrote this book. I believe that I could use some of the chapters from this book to create a pilot program, mentoring program, an 8-week program to help our young men not only just stay in school,
Yeah,
but lower, all the fighting to boost their grades. I didn't know how to do that, but I just felt as if I could. I'm selling a message, right?
yeah.
And so I've never done a mentoring program before, didn't know how to do it, but I put it together chapter by chapter. Went to her, I said, this is what it's going to look like. She gave me the go ahead. 8 weeks, every Wednesday during lunchtime, they would meet with me for an hour during their lunch, and I would deliver. I would share this character content with them. And in the beginning, it was 15, 16 young men. Half of them didn't really want to be there, but by the end, all of them stayed, and more young men wanted to come for the next cohort.
Wow.
But at the beginning, they were coming to school with their pants sagging and not really wanting to caring about themselves and hair not combed. By the end, every Friday they were wearing white shirts, black ties, black slacks, black pants. Right. And
Wow.
so the transformation that happened in 8 weeks, the mentality shift, the fact that they feel as if, what, I'm valuable, that was invaluable for that school at the time. So that was the genesis of me working with young men is, oh, you know what? I have an embedded customer base. Let
Huh.
me see what I can do. How can I use this content to empower the young men I work with every single day?
So what was I mean, this is interesting because these we assume many times that these young men lessons that I took for granted, ideas that my dad instilled in me that I thought this must be second nature. Um, when you're writing your book, if you don't mind, maybe you pick out a chapter that you say, okay, here's something that was real important. One of the things we focused in on. Your title is "Walk Like a King," so
Mhm.
um, I guess that's a good place to kind of start from the title. Why did you choose?
Yeah.
We live in a culture today that everybody's calling each other king, and
Yeah.
but you were writing this book before this became popular, saying, right? So, what was your idea of walk like a king, and then think and then I'm thinking about what do you mean by conquering the world?
Yeah. So King, that's actually an acronym
Ah,
for keep investing in the next generation, right?
I
And
like it.
so pretty much like what I was doing, I'm teaching them how to do. So as they're learning these key principles and they're walking it out in their life, it's their responsibility to give it to their little cousins, their nephews,
I
the
love
people in
it.
their neighborhood, right?
I
So
love
I'm
it.
not just teaching it for themselves, I'm teaching them how to leave a legacy at the same time.
Wow.
And so that's what King stands for. So if you want to conquer the world, if you want to leave a legacy, if you want to leave your leadership aroma in the world, it's going to require you to have that mindset of, okay, I've learned this. How can I pass it on as well? These simple principles like hygiene,
Yeah.
taking a shower at night before you go to bed,
Yeah.
making sure your fingernails and your toenails aren't dirty, that they're clipped, making sure that when you come to school that your hair is combed or brushed or braided, that you're looking neat, that your teeth are brushed,
Yeah.
that your skirt is tucked in, because they couldn't sag, right? So make sure that your shirt, all these different small things that men take for granted, but so many young boys haven't had deposited into them, right? So
Yeah.
hygiene, how to goal set, right? Like what does it look like to have a vision and write it down
Hmm.
and work towards it and be persistent and diligent? What does it look like to celebrate once you've completed a task, but
Yeah.
then get back to work again? Like all of these different things that we take for granted that these young men had never ever heard before, and it was just so transformational.
You saying all of that, it gives me. I don't know what the feeding into your program was, but for me, like I have a new session getting ready to kick up Monday, and I've got 14 young guys coming in. It's so, and you probably see this all the time. It's so sad when I come in there and I have my first session. I always have it with the parents, and I'm like, it's all moms. And I'm like, where the dads at?
Yeah.
This this epidemic, if would, of fatherlessness. I had a friend with my dad when my dad died who texted me and said, "Man, I'm not a preacher and all that. I don't have any scriptures for you. Here's what I can say. I'm a fatherless father out here trying to figure it out."
Yeah.
Now, what would you say to these uncles, mentors, fathers who maybe they don't have a biological son, maybe they do, maybe they have young men around them who just are not involved, who really don't know what impact they could make on a young man? What would you say to those guys?
I believe that everything starts with identity,
Mm,
like knowing who you are, not being perfect, right? But just understanding the value that you bring to the table, but also understanding the gaps as well. This is what I'm good at, but also this is what I need to work on. And so, as a man, understanding what you can bring to the table of value, sometimes it's just having a presence ministry. Sometimes you don't even have to say a whole lot. You just have to just show up, right? But also understanding, okay, this is the value that I bring, and this is how I can serve my community. This is how I can serve the young men around me, right?
yeah.
And this right here, understanding that you don't have to do it all yourself.
Wow.
There are other people around that can help you impact and pour into these young men around you. I know in this area we have about 75 different mentoring programs that all do the same thing.
Wow. Wow.
And since I've been living in this area, I have never seen all of these mentoring programs come together to host one conference, one
Mm,
event, nothing, right? And so having that Superman complex, it keeps us divided, which means that we can't make the most impact, right? So number one, have an identity.
yeah.
Number two, being inclusive, right?
Mm,
Because you do something better than I do something better than you do. let's come together and let's make this thing happen, right? And the third thing, like once you know these things, just being intentional about doing it every day or doing it consistently, right? So you might not be able to pick up that young man every day, but consistency might look like once a month or
Yeah.
twice a month. It might look like a text message or a voicemail or a video message where at least he can see your face and hear your voice, right? And so identity,
Mm.
inclusion,
Yeah.
and intentionality.
That's that's good stuff, man. And there's so many guys. If you're watching right now, I have Jesse Cole Jr. For those of you who are just joining us, and we've been talking in and around this concept of manhood. And Jesse has written a book entitled "Walk Like a King." It's on Amazon. You can go ahead and pick it up. Walk Like a King. It's there. And I'm telling you, I love guidebooks because those guidebooks are how-tos. And I am just so excited about what God is doing in his life. And I'm excited about what God is. I really feel like God is doing something, Jesse, in this season for men. I'm really hearing a clarion call for men. And really in this space and in this work that we're doing for manhood, I believe it's under attack. I believe men are told they're not needed in a family. I believe men are told women can do it without them. I believe constantly men are just told like, hey, you're not valuable. But I really believe that it's people like yourself, the work that we're doing with Manmaker Academy. I believe that God is restoring men's identity. How important for you is it for men to be like, I'm not trying to be chauvinistic. What I'm saying is, how important is it for men to take their rightful role in the family, in community, and leadership? How important is that for you?
For me, it's right up under God and Jesus. It's us.
Yeah.
That's what the headship looks like, right?
Yeah.
It's us. We have been called to be the priests and leaders of our homes. That doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect. All right. So I don't want to put that out there. There are some areas that we all can grow in. We're going to continue to grow. But God has called us to lead our homes, man.
Yeah.
Like God has called us to set the tone, to set the culture of what goes on inside of our home, not to be dogmatic. I'm not saying that you're going to, lord over your people or, be dog. No, God is, we got to do it with grace. Right.
Yeah.
We have to be a reflection of Christ in our homes, but God has called us to that. There's this undercurrent. I'm not sure if you're seeing it, but for a long time, as you said, the INDEP, the independent women have been like,
yeah.
And I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. I don't agree with it all the time, but I get it. I get it. But what I've been seeing lately, especially with professional women, is a desire to do life in partnership with someone. I'm seeing more women wanting to be softer. They want to be led, right? They want to have a man in their life that's going to take the lead. Like I'm hearing that and I'm seeing it over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so many times, men, when we see a woman who's a strong sister, independent, we like, listen, if you that strong, what you need me for? If you're trying to be the man, if you're trying to be the leader, what do you need me for? Men, we sow. So if I can't sow into you, what's my purpose, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to fight with you either. If you want to be the man, you be the man. Go ahead, see what that feels like, right? But there are some women out there who are like, you know what? I'm getting tired. I'm tired. I cannot do this by myself. And they're learning what it looks like to do life in partnership.
Yeah.
With the strong man who is willing to grow in his leadership. And when they see that, when our women see that we're willing to grow, that we're taking those steps, then it releases them to be that help me.
Now you opened up something now, because recently Bishop Jakes has been under fire. I don't know if you saw those comments. Bishop Jakes has been under fire because he came out in a sermon and said God designed men to be poor, and you just said it in some sense there too, that men sow. But then he says in this culture, in this generation, it's almost like this culture is raising women to be men. And it creates a level of confusion. It's role specific. So like if and I get it, my wife and I have come together and we've got our marriage and our relationship working. It is clear. It is clear in our home that I'm the leader. But I think sometimes we misdiagnose biblical leadership. You know, Jesus was a leader, the ultimate leader, but he was a servant leader. And so we don't just as men toss around our authority and toss around our leadership. No, we've got to have a certain level of prudence with that. I think we got to deal with that. I mean, so let's deal with the brother then who approaches the leadership dynamic of like, I want you to submit to me and I want you to follow me. Is that the right approach?
Man, that is what culture and tradition has taught us. That's the old guard. That I have to rule with the iron fist. That's what our fathers and granddaddies, like that, they grew up under that. That you have to rule with iron fist. But what we don't realize is that those men were fighting socially. They were fighting for their position socially.
That's good.
So when they come home, they don't want to have to do that. So they at home is the only place they feel like they could be a man, right? But as you talked about, we must, if we are believers, we must be a reflection of Christ, right? And Christ led with graceful accountability. I'm writing something about that right now, like graceful accountability. I believe as husbands and fathers, in order for us to be a reflection of Christ, we have to embody that. Like, what does graceful accountability look like? It looks like telling, teaching, taking by the hand, taking a step back, and troubleshooting over and over and over. Like, that's how we build culture in our homes. Telling, guiding, giving information, right? Setting standards, setting the temperature, teaching, showing our wives and our children how to apply these things to life.
Yeah.
So if we're not around, they are well equipped to carry on this culture. Taking them by the hand. All that is pure discipleship. You're walking with them. You're not lording over them.
Wow.
You're not making them feel invaluable. You're not making them feel small. But when they're up, you're up. When they're down, you're there.
Yeah.
Right? Taking them by the hand. Taking a step back is where most leaders fail at, is because we want to have our hands on everything. But taking a step back is more of a covered independence, meaning I've taught you these things. I've set the standard, and this is how I'm walking with God. This is what God is saying about our family. Now I'm here, but I'm giving you the opportunity to walk this out on your own so you can learn, right?
Yeah.
And then that's taking a step back. And then troubleshooting is, okay, let's come to the table. Let's talk about what worked, what didn't work. If I was too hard, if I could have did this better, if you could have did this better, like coming to the table and talking about how we can generate this kingdom culture in our home, how we can do it better. Yeah. Like, that's what graceful accountability is in a nutshell.
Graceful
and I believe as men, we cannot, if we want our women and our children to see Christ in us, then we have to display the fruit of the Spirit even in our leadership.
I love it. I love it. Graceful accountability. I just downloaded that in my mental round. I'm gonna quote that. I would just let you know, but I will give you the credit. Graceful account. I love that.
I'm writing a book on it right now. So that should be out sometime next year.
Nice. Graceful accountability. I love it. Everybody, as I said, this has been Jesse Cole, who has written a book called Walk Like a King, amongst other things. And I think it's good that we show examples of men who are taking care of their families, who are leading in the home as being a good husband, man of God, as we kind of close out here, and I thank you so much for spending some time with me. But as we kind of close out here, I like to show real life examples of just men who are a man first, but then you've got so many other things going on. So can you talk a couple of minutes about, everything else you're doing? Like what you're a husband and a father, but you're out providing and you're out hustling and grinding for your family. So can you talk a little bit about that? What you got going on?
Yeah. So outside of that, I'm actually in a pivot now. So the first 6 years of my business, I was helping authors write and publish their books. But God is like, yeah, I need you to focus on this kingdom confidence message. So I wrote a book 2 years ago called Kingdom Confidence, and I kind of put it down, and he's bringing it back, wanting me to, really focus on that. So this kingdom confidence message is talking about how to demonstrate the power, the authority, and the influence of God in your life and in your business. So what does it look like for you as an organizational leader who's also faith-driven to lead in those corporate environments, right? Like what does that look like? I get so many questions about, man, how do I bring my whole self to work? How do I bring my whole self to my business without turning people away or turning people off? I'm like, well, listen, first of all, you don't got to separate the two, right? They merge together. Faith and business is one thing. So teaching people how to do that effectively is what the Kingdom Confidence message is. So I'm really focused on getting that message out. We have a few coaching programs that we're going to be starting unpacking in August. We're going to have a Kingdom Confidence boot camp. Then we're going to have a Kingdom Confidence Academy, which is a 6-week group coaching program that we're going to have. We're going to cap that at 30 people. And then we have Kingdom Confidence Succession, which is a higher level coaching program for leaders who want to connect with us for a longer period of time. And then we have Kingdom Confidence coming. We're going to have Kingdom Confidence Mastermind, then Kingdom Confidence Retreat. Everything is going to be Kingdom Confidence, helping these faith-driven organizational leaders demonstrate the power, authority, and influence of God in their life and in their business. So that is my main focus right now.
And we can connect with you. What's your website, Jesse?
You can go to CoachJesseCole.com.
CoachJesseCole.com. And of course, everybody, we're going to put all of this in the description of this video. And I am so, Jesse, I'm so humbled and grateful and thankful that you have chosen to spend a few minutes with us on the Man Maker podcast. Everybody, I believe that manhood is best depicted in the company and conversation of other men. So if you've got some young men out there, get them around some young men, some older men, a man in general who's got good, healthy models. Whatever you do, fellas, before your title, be a man first. This has been Chris Johnson and Jesse Cole on episode 2 of the Man Maker podcast. God bless you and see you next time.